Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making this pretty in purple bracelet featuring two different sizes of Rivolis. This is a nice simple way to get started working with Rivolis with nice simple bezels. Gather up your materials, which are also listed and linked below in the description, and let's get started. So to begin, we are going to be wrapping our Rivolis, and these are the 14. We're going to start with the 14 and then we're going to go into the 10. And we're going to be creating them as each individual component. I have 14mm Rivolis here in the Amethyst color, and then the Violet Metallic Ice in the 10mm Potomac Rivoli. I have some Duracoat Galvanized Silver Delica beads, some Magic Blue 11O seed beads, and some 15O in the Duracoat Galvanized Eggplant color. These are all the Miyuki brand seed beads / Delicas. I have on a size 12 beading needle on some .006 wildfire beading thread. And the first thing I've done to continue with my bezeling here in this netted section is I've added a stop bead onto the end of my thread, and then I've strung on a total of 24 beads. I'm going to take my needle and thread and go back through the first 6 of those 24 beads. When I come out after the 6th bead, I want you to grab one 11O seed bead and then proceed to sew through the next 6 beads. Give a nice tight pull, add one more 11, and sew through the next 6 beads. We're doing this 4 times because we're making a little box here, adding an 11, and then sewing through the next 6 beads in line. When you're on your last corner, you're going to be coming out right there next to the stop bead. When you're coming out next to the stop bead, just bend that stop bead down a little bit. Add your corner 11O seed bead and sew through that last grouping of 6. Once you're out that last group of 6, go ahead and proceed also through that corner 11O seed bead and out. Once you're out on the corner of the 11O seed bead, we're going to make, after we have that nice little box, we're going to make some little flaps basically, or little flower petals that are going to curl around the top of the Rivoli. To do so, when coming out of the 11O seed bead, I'm going to have you add one more 11O seed bead. That's going to help to kind of turn the corner there. We want 3 Delicas on our needle, followed by 3 of our 15s. Finish it up with 3 Delicas, because we're repeating the pattern, and then our 1 11O. So you're going to put those 11 beads on your needle and thread, and then you're going to jump over and sew through the next corner 11O seed bead. Now that you have 1, you're going to repeat that pattern a total of 4 times, so 3 more times. Again, 1 of my 11, 3 Delicas, 3 15s, 3 Delicas, followed by 1 11. Go into the next corner, and you have 2 more sections to do. Once we're done with these last 2 flaps, we're going to make it so we're coming out our first 15O as we step up to do our next section, bezeling in our Rivoli. As you bezel in and you have your last set, you're going to sew through that first corner 11O that we were coming out of. And once we sew through that first corner, we're going to step up again so that we're coming out after the first 15O. So you're going to take your thread and needle the whole way up through the Delicas and that 11 and out right after that first 15O. What we're going to do now is go around the whole section. We're going to hold our crystal in place and wrap these little flower petals around the crystal to create the netting. Coming out after the 15, you're going to add 1 more 15 and sew through the third 15. So we're skipping the second 15 and sewing through the third. That's what's going to get us that little diamond that sits right on top of the crystal. Coming out there then, go ahead and add 3 more of your Delica beads. Once those 3 Delica beads are on your needle and thread, you're going to go over to the next little flower petal and grab that first 15O just like we did coming out previously. Go ahead and add one more 15 and sew through the third 15 in line. Give a nice tight pull on your thread after doing so to make sure that you don't have any extra thread showing along the design. We're going to continue this a total of 4 times, adding on 3 15-ohs, sewing through the first 15, bending that thread around the top of the Rivoli, add one more 15, sew through the third 15 in line, and give a nice tight pull. If your starter thread or your stop thread gets in there, just pull it out. And make sure as you're connecting that these 4 beads there are sitting in that nice kind of diamond shape. And again, that you don't have a lot of extra thread showing. I have one more rotation to do of that 15 on top. Going in and again pulling the thread and not the needle. Adding your 15 and going on. After you're done going around your rotation, you have 3 more of your delicas to add. Going through that first 15 that your thread was coming out of. And this again is your area where you're giving a nice tight pull. This is where I don't want to see any extra thread, so you're going to kind of massage the crystal into place there. Give a nice tight pull, and I'm going to sew through that outer edge of beads one more time. After sewing through and reinforcing, which is also going to get rid of those thread gaps, we're going to bring our wire to the back and simply tie it off with the 2 ends together. When you do take a second strand of your thread the whole way through all the delicas you just added and back through that triangular peak that you made, it really does tighten up those units and makes that netting sit perfectly around the 14mm Rivoli. We're going to do the exact same thing now on a smaller scale with the 10. So when it comes to doing the 10mm Rivoli, we're going to do it pretty much in the exact same way. I have already started here, instead of a grouping of 24 and going through 6. We have 16 starting Delica beads. And then I cornered them off, adding a 11-0 seed bead after every 4 beads to make my nice square box for my Rivoli to sit in. Then I added, as I'm going around the corners here, 1 11, switching to 2 Delicas, 3 15s, 2 Delicas, 1 11, and then back into that corner bead. I did that on all 4 corners, and now I'm going to bring my thread and needle up through the side, stepping up like we did with the 14, going through all of the 15-0 seed beads, and then as I come out through the 15-0s, I'm going to grab my Rivoli and get ready to put it in the middle. On the corners, what I'm going to be doing pattern-wise is a 15, a Delica, and a 15. Sewing through that first 15-0 in the next round of my 15-0 seed beads, adding 1 15-0, skipping over the middle bead, and sewing through the third bead. Again, that's that same pattern to get us that nice diamond shape. Coming out that third 15 then, same deal, add 1 15, 1 Delica, 1 15, and then next corner of 15s. Go through the first one, again pull your thread, add 1 more 15, skip over the second, and go through the third. You're going to repeat all of these cornerings a total of 4 times till you get your Rivoli nice and in place there. Just like we did on the starter one on the 14 as well, after we get through and we do all of these sides and pull all of this netting in, what you're going to do is reinforce and sew around the outer loop 1 more time. So I'm going in here, I have 1 more of my 15, a couple more to add here, and dump some more out. I always dump out my beads by the capful, that way you don't have too many on your mat that you can't control. Add 1 15, skip over the second, and sew into the third. Again, as you come out through that third bead, you're going to kind of fold those flaps right over top, grab onto your thread, pull that netting in closer, add a 15, a Delica, a 15. You're going to go over to that first grouping of 15s that your thread was coming out of, sew through bead number 1. Again, give a nice tight pull. And at this point here, same like we did with the 14, kind of push your Rivoli in, massage a little bit. And then as you go in here, adding the last 15, skipping over the second, sewing through the third, then you're going to sew back through all of the seed beads that you just added and beads 1 and 3 from the corners. So I'm going to give a nice tight pull to get that nice Rivoli bezel right in there. Sew around again, bead 1, the new bead you added, bead 3, and back through the 15 Delica 15. After you're done, you're going to bring your thread and needle down through the 11s to the back of the crystal project and tie off your thread ends together, the starter thread and the ending thread that you have. You're going to do a total of 4 approximately of your 15 O's, or of your 14 millimeter Rivolis rather, and you're going to do 5 of your 10 millimeter Rivolis. So you're just going to repeat these till you get a total of your Rivolis finished. Once you have all the netting done on your crystals, it's time to actually assemble the bracelet. You can also do it as a necklace if you want. I have 0.006 wildfire beading thread, the same that I've been using for the netting, and I have 2 needles on 1 piece of 3 foot of thread. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab 115, one of my magic blue, and 115. Going to let that drop down to the center of my thread, which is an equal distance. And then I'm going to pick up my cup button. I have it turned so that the button is facing bowl side down. And I'm taking a needle through one way and then the other way. Those colors will just kind of decorate the middle there. Coming out the end here, I want to create a V but also reinforce the thread. So I'm going to take 2 15s on my right needle, 2 15s on my left needle. If you hate 2 needles, you can do this with 1 needle. I'm then going to take 1 of my 11 O's in that magic blue and crisscross through. 1 needle going through right to left and 1 left to right. Make sure as you pull the beads down next to the button that you still have equal amounts of thread on each side. Left side, right side, doesn't matter right now. What you're going to do is take your thread and needle and reinforce going back through the button as well as the seed beads leading up to the button and the seed beads inside of the button. This is going to get 2 strands of thread through the clasp. When you come down the other side, you're going to go down through the 15s after that cup button and out. And then once you're out the back of that cup button, again, go through that 11O in the magic blue. This is going to get our button right on there, have that nice V, and then we'll get ready to go down the back of the Delica rows along our bezels and add in some seed beads along the way. Now we're going to be adding basically a track for our Rivolis to sit on. Coming out of the cup button, I put on a 15, an 11 in my magic blue, 6 Delicas, and I did that on both sides. Then what we're going to do is split the threads, and you're going through the 11O that sits on the corner, opposing corners of that Rivoli. Coming out of the Rivoli then, we're going to get ready to add the next size up. Now keep in mind you can do this all with the same size if you'd like. I'm going to go in and add my 6 of my Delica beads on my right needle, pick up my left needle, and add 6 of my Delica beads. After those 6 Delica beads, let those drop down next to the end of your crystal here. And what we're going to do is bring our thread together in a point before going back out and creating another section of our 15O. To do so, I want you to add a magic blue on your right needle, magic blue on the left needle. After the magic blue on the right and the left, we're going to take our thread and needle and crisscross through another blue. So 1 needle going through right to left and 1 left to right. Now keep in mind, whatever way you force these to sit, that's which way you're going to make sure they all sit. So you want your Rivolis going all one way rather than some sitting up and some sitting down. Separate out your needles again and add an 11O on either side here. And then we're going to get ready to add our next Rivoli, going through again those 11Os. If you have a knot right there that you haven't burnt down, switch it and just go through the opposite ones. So you're going to grab your Delicas again. Prior to the Rivoli, we're going to pick up 8 Delicas. We did 6 prior to the 10 millimeter. We're going to do 8 prior to the 14. So you're going to do your 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 through that side 11-0 of the Rivoli, and I have them facing down. And then again, do the 8 on the opposite side. Once you have those 8 on, you're going to repeat doing 8 after the Rivoli, and then splitting the needles, doing 1 magic blue on the right, 1 on the left, crisscrossing through, and then doing the next one as well. It'll sit just as a cute little perch basically in the middle there of the design. So I'm going to continue again. It's 8 delicas when I'm going through the 14, coming out or going into, and it is 6 delicas when I'm going into the 11-0. So on the last area where you're finishing up your bracelet, remember I had said that you're going to need about 4 of your 14s and then 5 of your 10s. If you do have a smaller wrist like me, you can usually get away with 3 of the 14s and then 4 of the 10s. And what you're going to do is, after that crisscross portion where you were going to add another one of your Rivolis, instead what you're going to add is 26 of your 11-0 seed beads on one side of your needle. You're going to cross through the 11 that your thread is coming out of, give a nice tight pull, and then pick up the other needle. With the other needle, just like we did when it came to the cup button at the beginning, we're going to reinforce and sew back through all of these seed beads, these 26 seed beads that I just added. If you are doing a wire clasp, clasp guarding clasp, toggle clasp, or crystal, you would do this as well at the same exact time. And I would recommend using a wire guard or a wire guardian or a wire protector, sometimes they're called. That's great for going and having thread be contained inside a metal piece that's going to attach to your clasp. Going in here then, after I go through all these seed beads, I'm going to again cross through that 11-0 seed bead. So my thread and needle are exiting different sides of that 11-0 seed bead. What I'm going to do then is bring one of my threads and needle the whole way down around this last channel through all my 6 delicas, my 1 11-0, 6 delicas, and then circle it up the whole way till it comes out right there. And I'm going to tie the thread ends off. The last thing I'm going to do to my Pretty in Purple's bracelet is go ahead and burn off any additional thread that I have in the back. I did want to show how it looks on the design, and there's so many fun ways that you can do in order to add them together, to vary it up, and to use these as components, not simply just in this bracelet, but also in many other ways. Keep in mind, if you do need any of those materials, check out the links below to shop with us online. In addition to that, you can always give a thumbs up, comment and like the video. You can always too, if you haven't done so, hit that corner button to make sure to subscribe to get regular emails, regular updates from us here at Potomac Beads. As always, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you learned a lot in this netting bezeling technique, and you have fun creating your Pretty in Purple bracelet.